Hey everyone, it's SunTypes. Today I'm talking, I guess, about the new Pokemon TCG expansion called Pitch Black, but really this video is going to be more about the state of Pokemon TCG expansions because we kind of need to talk about them. And this is something that we've seen in the Mega era and really affects the Pokemon TCG and the state of the format here. But obviously, the first thing we have to talk about here is the expansion Pitch Black. This is the name of the fifth main English Mega Evolution set. Also, I'm here on PokeBeach looking at this. It will release on Friday, July 17th, so that's a while from now. And this is, again, the fifth Mega Evolution set, the third main set of the year. So the second set of the year is Chaos Rising, releasing where is it? May 22nd, which is actually when the Japanese expansion Abyss Eye is releasing. The Japanese expansion Abyss Eye is going to be making up, and also it is featuring Mega Darkrai EX. I'll say that like I guess matters, but we actually don't know anything about the card, so it doesn't actually matter for now. But it'll be featured in Abyss Eye in Japan, and then it'll release a little bit later internationally in Pitch Black, right? So we're going to see that. Also, the set name seems just short, but anyways, it's also interesting here, and this is the most important thing that we have to talk about here. So since there are no other Japanese sources that can be used for our set, this will be another case of an English set being almost a one-to-one copy of the Japanese set, like Phantasmal Flames, Perfect Order, Chaos Rising, these sets here. This means the set will be smaller. And this is in some ways it's disappointing, and we just start by looking at the Scarlet and Violet era here, and looking, I guess, at the Japanese expansion. So with the Mega era, we see Nile Zero, we see Inferno X, we see Mega Brave and Mega Symphonia. Mega Brave and Mega Symphonia together made up Mega Evolution. Mega Evolution, I'd say, is a pretty cool set with some decent cards in it. If we just look through the three main sets we've seen so far, Mega Evolution obviously has a bunch of Mega Evolutions here. Some of these are decent, and there's a good amount of variety. There's some good support Pokemon, like, say, Lunatone. There's some good trainers. They are type-specific. I've talked a lot about these cards, and obviously about just cards in general. But overall, I would say it's a pretty good set, and I imagine most people would. I suppose I'd love your thoughts on, in comment section, really, like, how you'd rank the three main sets so far. I would definitely go Mega Evolution, and then Perfect Order, then Phantasmal Flames. Phantasmal Flames here. So Mega Evolution has 188 cards, or 132 cards, I guess, in the main set. Phantasmal Flames has 94, and then Perfect Order has. Wait, I thought Phantasmal Flames had less for some reason. I guess not. Perfect Order had. Perfect Order had 88 here. So Perfect Order is the smallest. Perfect Order obviously has Meowth EX, and it comes with rotation. So there's a big shakeup alongside it, which may be making me a bit biased here. But I would say it definitely has some cool cards. I see Phantasmal Flames, I guess, has some okay, kind of interesting cards as well. There's some Megas that have something to them. There are some single prizers that are playable, but for the most part, I'd say the set is relatively bad, right? I imagine most people would agree as well. You got Mega Nancy EX and Wondrous Patch and Battle Cage and stuff, and Dawn as well. There are certainly other cards as well, but I wouldn't say any of them are super interesting. I wouldn't say Dawn is a super interesting card. It's certainly it's an alright card. It adds something to the game, but I'd say that's probably the most interesting card in the set. Being versatile, you see Battle Cage seeing a lot of play, but it's not a super interesting card. I'd say it's the opposite of an interesting card there. Then Perfect Order, I'd say, is a little more interesting. Obviously, we all have Pokebad as well. Pokebad came in Ascended Heroes, but is in Perfect Order as well. Then Meowth EX, as I said. And, okay, I just love Telepathic Psychic Energy. But anyways, I'm getting a little sidetracked here. But Perfect Order, Phantasmal Flames, though, they're pretty underwhelming sets. Mega Evolution has a bit more stuff to it here. And looking at Japan, as I said, Nile Zero, Inferno X, Mega Dream EX, Mega Dream's a little different, but Mega Brave, Mega Symphonia. You can look at other cards here, like, say, Heatwave Arena and Glory Team Rocket. These two sets make up, if we look at the cards, we see Arboliva EX, we see the Team Rocket stuff, obviously, and then Heatwave Arena, we see on Mega EX, a bunch of different trainers Pokemon. These two sets made up Destined Rivals. This is true for most of the international sets we have. So if we look at them, we see. Also, there's a bunch of different products. So Japan has, say, oh yeah, I forgot the Marnies and Steam stuff also ends up in Destined Rivals, which were a separate thing. But you got this is Journey Together. Journey Together was mostly one Japanese set, and was, I'd say, a bit more of a smaller, less exciting set for that reason. We have, that's Prismatic Evolutions, but we have a Paradise Dragana as well as Super Electric Breaker, these made up Surging Spark. So, we see a lot of sets internationally made up of 2 Japanese sets. This is how it's been for a long time, and I'd say is good because it makes the sets more interesting there and have more stuff. And with Phantasmal Flames, with Perfect Order, with Chaos Rising coming soon, now with Pitch Black, this is 4 main sets in a row that are these small sets, which I say is pretty underwhelming. It's a whole year's worth of sets there. Yes, we have special sets. Notably, we had Ascended Heroes. Ascended Heroes was fine in terms of new stuff. In terms of stuff in general, there's a lot of stuff in the set. A lot of it isn't new, and a lot of it isn't good either. Admittedly, sometimes we see a lot of this filler kind of chucked into other sets, and adding cards that aren't very interesting to sets that are a little small isn't super, exciting, right? They don't add too much content to the set, but also the sets still, with like say Perfect Order, there's a lot of Pokemon that aren't super interesting here. I'd say the EXs and the Megas are kind of fine. Ultimately, this is the first year of the Mega, or okay, I was gonna say it's the first year of the Mega Evolution era. It is obviously weird with the Mega Evolution era starting halfway through a year as opposed to at the beginning of a year. That being said, with the Mega era there, we see that we have Pitch Black being the 5th set, which means that it's like not part of the first year, and in some ways dividing it up. Obviously, by regulation mark and by actual year, we see Mega Evolution and Phantasmal Flames, where I think they can take it a little safer. I would say that the Megas in the Mega Evolution base set didn't have too much crazy going on with them, which is fine in terms of like say abilities. That's something I kind of critiqued the cards about, and multiple different attacks. I'd say Mega Lucario obviously does 2 attacks. They're kind of interesting, but for the most part, I'd say the Mega Evolutions in Mega Evolution, the set they're fine, right? I'm not going to sit here and critique them, but they're not like amazing, right? In terms of interest, in terms of power level, I think they're certainly fine. But in terms of depth, they're okay. They certainly could be more though. And Phantasmal Flames, Perfect Order has not really upped that. I'd say it's probably done the opposite. Mega Charizard only has 1 attack, which isn't a super interesting attack. You have the Mega Heracross EX. Let's be honest, that card's like so bad. Mega Dance EX, 1 attack, and the ability is something, but it's hardly something. You have Mega Lopunny. Mega Lopunny is cool, I guess, but it's got 2 attacks. There's something interesting, but the second attack's not that interesting. It's more just like a counter card. And you have Mega Gengar and Mega Sharpedo, which are both fine, I guess. But again, they're not like super interesting cards, I'd say. And certainly I wouldn't say that the ones in Phantasmal Flames didn't look at perfect order. We got Mega Starmie, we got Mega Clefable, we got Mega Zygarde, and Mega Skarmory. Those cards are, they're fine. I'm not going to sit here and bash these cards. But in terms of the cards representing the mechanic, that's literally the name of the era, they're kind of boring. And for the most part, I would say that the cards are just worse as well, right? With rotation, we saw a big shakeup in the meta. So if we look at decks, we see that currently we got, this is what the metagame's looking like. But pre-rotation, we saw a bunch of powerful decks that were rotating and a lot of cards in these decks. I'm not going to go, through that now. I've certainly gone through that a lot and will probably at some point go through it again. So I guess subscribe so you don't miss that. But ultimately, with the Mega era replacing, obviously the older Scarlet and Violet era cards, it's not really, I would say it's just not really doing it. Like, you have some replacements, like, say, Pokepad for Nest Ball, Meowth EX for Squawkabilly EX, but you look at the top Pokemon, you look at Gardevoir EX, Charizard EX, you look at also, what's the other one? Gholdengo EX, those 3 are very, very powerful. And the Mega era just has not had Pokemon, I wouldn't say anywhere near that power level, unless I'm forgetting something. But the Megas themselves just have not really matched that, and nor have the other EXs either. Outside, I guess, Meowth EX, as I said, but that's a support Pokemon, which is fine. They're important. But we haven't seen these, really deck-defining cards. In some ways, this is a shift in card design, and this is Pokemon kind of reverse power creeping, I guess, which is fine. I'm certainly not going to complain about that. I don't think power creep is something people like to complain about because in some games it can be really bad. But in Pokemon, I guess it's bad for formats that aren't standard. But for standard, I guess it can be an issue as well, depending how much money you plan on spending on it. I will say, for the most part, you can play the game without really spending very much money, but that's for another day. But ultimately, with these weaker cards and smaller sets, with the small set, you're going to have generally weaker cards. Pokemon ultimately tries to balance cards. Obviously, they don't predict every use of every card, and so there'll probably be some stuff that's stronger than intended. I imagine Dragapult EX, for example, is a little stronger than intended, being very broken. And I'm sure they meant it to be strong, but I think it's a bit more than they were planning for. And so the more cards they have, the more chances they have at making these cards that are very powerful. And in some ways, this gets the game moving more. With post rotation, I would say the game hasn't. It's kind of I've heard a lot of complaints just about post rotation being a little slow and a little underwhelming and not necessarily new in a fun way, but new because there's just some stuff you can't do, not because there's stuff you can do. And I certainly would love to hear people's thoughts on post rotation in general and their experiences with that. But in terms of replenishing the stuff lost with rotation, which every new set is doing, right? Rotation's a big loss of cards, then it's steadily increased back to where it was. It definitely feels like the game is, I mean, literally shrinking. The amount of cards that are in standard are going down here with something like this. Obviously, with something like Ascend the Heroes, that's going to be a bit different. But with these main sets shrinking, which are, by the way, the source of generally most of the good cards. In general, mini sets don't have good cards, I guess, or I guess special sets is what I call them. They're not all small. Ascend the Heroes doesn't really have good cards outside, I guess, Pokemon is very good. And there's some other ones that are certainly fine. Looking at Black Bolt, White Flare, these two sets are, I guess they're okay. They have some decent stuff. They're a bit weird as well. But looking at, I'd say, a more normal special set, you have, well, okay. Prismatic Evolutions might have the best Pokemon in the game. It's also, this is like a lot of reprints. When I talk about good new cards, I'm talking about new cards. So Flareon EX, certainly a fine card. That is new to Prismatic. What am I talking about? I forgot that because Sylveon EX isn't. But like Tiamat Pun EX, right? Tiamat Pun EX is not new to Prismatic Evolutions. And Iron Thorns EX here, a very good card, not new to Prismatic Evolutions. There are a lot of cards here that are good. Dusknoir is super good. Munkidor is super good. These cards just aren't new to the set. So in terms of new cards, there's some that are decent. There's obviously Budew, which is very good. But for the most part, that's pretty lackluster new cards. Looking at Stratofable, this is going to be the other side of the coin. This is going to be a small set, like a quite small set here. You have 64 cards in the set, and there are some that are very good. You look at Pheasant Defeat EX, obviously very good, probably the best Pokemon in the game. You have Dusknoir as well, like super, super powerful there, right? So some really, really amazing cards, and Night Search as well, one of the best cards in the game. So ultimately, you see some amazingly powerful cards, but then you see just not as many cards. Ultimately, if Pokemon design more sets like Shrouded Fable and as small sets, I wouldn't mind that. But then you look at the set before as well, Twilight Masquerade. This is a big set, like a full main set, and it's got a lot of good cards. And it has some silly stuff as well. Festival Lead, which is a decent silly thing. You have like this Infernape. You've got what's another silly thing like Emolga, Morpeko, just like random Pokemon that are not very good but are kind of fun, right? And with a bigger set, they have more room to do these small, fun, silly things. Some stuff that's, I'd say, fair, balanced, and interesting, like Greninja EX, which I'd say is arguably more interesting than almost all of the Mega era EXs, including the Mega EXs, but also the not Megas in the Mega era, if that makes sense, like Meowth and Rotom EX and stuff like that. And then, you obviously have room for the really powerful stuff like Dragapult EX and I guess Iron Thorns EX is very good. Tiamat Pun EX, cards like this. You have some really powerful cards in this set, and I think you have a good mix of cards, and I'd say Twilight Masquerade is a really nice set. You could say it's overpowered, and that's fair as well, but ultimately, I feel like Pokemon's just kind of removed the top end of the cards, which is okay, but then they haven't replaced it with more interesting mediocre in a good way, mediocre in a fair way stuff. I feel like the game is just, it's gotten a little flat with card design, and Pokemon hasn't really adventured very far with the Mega era. I was wondering if they'd add something new and exciting in terms of mechanics. Obviously, they added the Megas, but the Megas aren't super mechanically unique. They are just 3 prizers, which is fine, but that's it. And we've seen 3 prizes before as well. It's a little different than the ones before, but it's, it's safe, and that's fine. I don't have an issue with safe, but I kind of do, right? Like, let's be honest, I kind of do. But I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comment section on this. If you're excited for this new set, I will say I think Mega Darkrai, pretty cool Pokemon, I guess. Kind of weird, but kind of cool. And I do like seeing new cards, but I just want to see as many as I can. And so I hope that we see more sets in Japan and bigger sets internationally, and just more cards. I like Pokemon cards. I like to see new and exciting Pokemon cards. But as I said, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comment section. Also, make sure you like, subscribe, hit the bell, all the good stuff. And also, huge shout outs to my YouTube members. It really helps support my channel. So I'd love it if you would join there and you get some cool stuff. We hope you enjoyed, and as always, I'm excited to see you in the next video.